Well, hello. I did it again. Hello and welcome to another edition of Lanark County Confidential. I got to get that intro figured out because I keep forgetting to push a button. So anyways, welcome. You're listening to Lanark County Confidential, coming to you on the RVO Radio Network, a division of Reno Viola Outdoors. WRVO is the newest and most progressive internet radio network, and our mission is to bring you talk radio about fishing and the outdoors with a mix of information and entertainment. So go to Reno Viola Outdoors to find this show and other shows about the outdoors of fishing, as well as some very, very useful links. I'm your host, Mike Lynch Staunton, and this is episode 13 of Lanark County Confidential. And this week's show is entitled Spring. It's finally here. For any of you guys that are not within my hearing voice, well, for anybody that's in any other area except for, well, I guess all of Canada, I guess the whole of North America is pretty much an extended cold snap. I saw snow in, where was it? They had snow in someplace, Minnesota or something like that this morning. Couldn't believe it. Amazing. But then again, it's Canada. So if you went any further north, you'd find that some of the lakes aren't even unthawed until you get to the middle of June and stuff like that. So global warming. What can we say? No, sorry. It's not global warming. It's climate change. Got to get the name right. Climate change. Next week it'll be weather change, or not sure, but anyways. So how do I know it's springtime? Well, the tap has stopped running and I'm finished boiling maple syrup. I think I got about 3 gallons this year, which is probably the best that I've done in a few years now. The whole of Lanark County had a really good success with maple syrup this year, and thank you, Mother Nature. We needed this. I know some of the people are not too happy because they couldn't get out in their boats early enough and stuff like that. But, you know, it's, I think weather is like karma. What goes around comes around. I think some years it's got to be nasty and crappy just to make us appreciate the summers that it's stinking hot. So I try not to complain about weather these days. It's just something that you get to endure and you put up with. So, but anyways, so this show is going to be about the springtime, putting your stuff away from your ice fishing stuff and getting the boat ready. And then I'm going to do a little thing on where to find crappies and what they might be doing this time of year. So anyways, let's start with your putting all your ice fishing stuff away. I know oh, look, there we go. There's some more deer. Can't believe that. We've got 57 acres here, and where I do my maple sugar sap, well, the maple, when I collect the maple sap, is like we have a bunch of trees that, maple trees in one area. We've got 2 cleared fields, and then there's some brush with where the maple trees are, and then a portion, it's like another half field, and then there's a field behind that. So we've got a lower area which has not dense brush, but it's brush for probably about 5-10 acres maybe. And that tree line is where the deer, the foxes, the coyotes, and the turkeys go. And then there's a little opening, and then they that's their little intersection, so they can go one way or the other. And last week I saw some just walking around about the same time, and there they are again today. So anyways, so back to where we were talking about. The studio's in the bedroom, so it's looking out on the back field, so I get a pretty good view of what's going on there during the day. So I'm sitting there looking at the horses. And so what are we going to do with our ice fishing stuff? Well, I know what I'm going to do with my ice fishing stuff. I'm going to put it away. And what I do is I have some of my, a lot of the tackle that I use for ice fishing, I use for crappies and panfish in the spring. So I'll just take those tackle bags out of the clam, take I don't leave much in the clam other than, spoons, or not, but stuff to clear the. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's the thing you clear the ice out of the hole with. I'm brain dead today, but anyways, I don't leave much in there. I might leave my rods in there, but I usually don't, because I got to steal some reels off of that to put on my ultralight stuff for crappie and stuff. So I'll take my rods out, I'll take my tackle out, and I'll just leave the containers in there and stuff like that. So I may leave the heaters in there, and I won't leave anything with batteries in there or anything like that, because they'll be leaking by the fall time. So and then I take that and I throw it in one of our sheds and I cover it with a tarp, and it sits there and doesn't bother anybody. Till I don't bother putting mothballs in it or anything like that. I don't think it's going to make a difference, and it hasn't had in the 3 years I've had the clam so far. So and then I look at the auger. What I have to do to the auger is basically if I know, like, say from the beginning of March, say, I'll be putting fuel stabilizer. I put fuel stabilizer, as a mechanic, I put fuel stabilizer in my fuel all the time. That's how anal I am. But what I'll do is at the end of the season, I'll drain that tank out of the auger, and then I'll just run the thing dry. And once it shuts down, I'll throw the choke on and try and start it 3 or 4 more times, and just so it draws all the fuel out of what minor little float bowl there is in that carburetor. So you have nothing sitting there at all to go bad, because it doesn't take much to plug up those carbs. So so you've drained the gas tank, you've ran the auger dry, you've thrown the choke on, you made sure that it can't start at all. And then you take some light oil or some WD-40 and you just spray the auger shaft, and especially the blades. Give them a good coating. Try and stay away from them. Don't put your fingers on them. Just spray them, because they will rust. And that's what destroys them more than anything, is the pitting from the rust, rather than anything else. Rather than going dull, but the pitting from the rust is not very good for them. So, and just that's what you want to do. You want to protect it from rust. So, put it in a corner, standing up. I've seen them get stepped on. So. The handles are expensive, so even though it's plastic, it's a pain to put it back together again. So put it in a corner, hang it on a hook or something like that. Put it in an area that you can sort of dedicate to that, or all your ice fishing stuff. And I have a little man cave. I have a couple of man caves, so I have a couple places to put them. So, and then it's done. And your next task is getting your boat ready for the springtime. If you haven't, if you don't get your boat winterized every year, which I strongly recommend, you're going to waste a lot of time in the springtime getting it serviced. I used to, 25 years of working in the marine industry, mechanics are in the springtime just overrun with all sorts of stuff, from getting boats ready to doing tune-ups, which I'll discuss in another show, is the worst thing you could ever ask to have done to your engine, is have it tuned up. And then I'll get into that for whatever reasons, because a tune-up in one place is not the same as a tune-up in another place. So it's maintenance. You get your engine serviced. You don't have it tuned up. Tuning it up, you tune a piano, you tune a guitar, you service a motor, you service an engine, you service equipment, you do maintenance on it, you don't tune it. Anyways, so what do I do to the boats to get them ready? Well, basically, a lot of the stuff is done in the fall time with the winterizing. So in the springtime, what I'm doing is I'm taking batteries. Well, what I do specifically to mine is I make sure my battery levels. I would have done this in the fall time before I put them away, but if you didn't, take a look at your battery. Charge it. If the levels are not even with that little well in the battery, and there'll be a little well there, and it's the battery level, the water should come up to the bottom of the well. Distilled water, not tap water, and not water from a well. Lots of minerals and stuff like that, so it has to be distilled water. and you fill that to the bottom of that well, and then you charge it. Or sorry, you charge it first, see where the levels are, and then you fill the water to the bottom of the well and charge it again. And then you clean your battery terminals, just a sandpaper, just to, if it's a dull gray, make it bright gray. Then you clean the ends of your battery connections or your battery cables. Just again, sandpaper, like 200 grit, something like that. And then you attach them, negative first, positive second. And I don't recommend wing nuts. Wing nuts are probably the worst thing you could ever do because people just tighten them. And I see so many problems with batteries that are not properly secured in the back of the boat, or are just sitting there with wing nuts, especially an aluminum boat. That I've seen a boat catch on fire because as the boat was going through the water, the battery hit the aluminum side, the bulkhead or gunnel type thing in the boat, and it lit up. And there was so much grease and oil at the back on the wood that it didn't take long for that boat to start on fire. The guy was kind of lucky. But then again, I've seen ignition systems fried. I've seen wiring harnesses fried. I've seen ignition systems blown. All sorts of lovely, wonderful things, from loose battery cables, an improperly secured battery, and stuff like that. So I don't recommend wing nuts. I recommend stainless steel nuts and star washers. Stainless steel star washers. Why stainless steel is because just normal, nickel coated, probably it's not even nickel, I don't know what they use, chrome I guess, it's going to rust in a short period of time. So you don't want to use that. So star washers, stainless steel star washers, stainless steel nuts, star washer on, battery cable, star washer sandwich, put the nut on and tighten it with a wrench. You won't have an issue. Guaranteed. Every year, clean your battery terminals, make sure your battery's serviced, make sure your battery's charged properly. You should get 5-6 years out of a battery. Not trolling motor batteries, that's going to be depending on use, but a normal starting battery, you should get 5-6 years. If you don't, try these things. Maybe you will. Plus, a good battery will make a difference as well too. Interstate, I find, is one of the better batteries out there. So, what's the next thing I do? Is I look at my trailer, make sure my tire pressures are all taken care of, make sure the lug nuts are tight. I take the electrical connections and I'll usually clean them because by this point in time there's enough corrosion on them over the winter time that they need to be cleaned, not only on the boat end but on the car end. What I'll do is in the winter time is I'll actually take grease and I'll put it in the connector if it's not one of those round ones. If it's just a flat one, just smear some grease in there. It will solve a lot of problems because then nothing gets in there. You don't have to worry about cleaning it out in the springtime. And then the grease basically, stops a lot of crap from getting in there and it stops the corrosion. Then I'll check the lights, make sure my grounds are good and stuff like that. 90% of the problems with lights on a trailer not working is a bad ground. Very easy way to tell is to take a big long wire and whatever light is not working, find a good ground on the truck and take that wire and go to the ground on that light receptacle or whatever. If it works, you got a bad ground there. Pretty simple, right? Jeez, I shouldn't be giving you these things. These little pearls of wisdom. Anyways, trailer's done, battery's in. Fire the damn thing up before you go to the water because the last thing you want to do is get there and not have it start, right? Pretty embarrassing, but so before you get to the water, don't forget your keys and the drain plug. I was sitting here one day, going to meet my buddy going to meet another guy in the water with his buddy, and I get a call here, and where are you? And I said, well, I'm just getting ready to leave. I had somebody bothering me. He said, do you have a spare key? He'd driven all the way from where, I guess, Kempville or something like that. Got there, forgot his keys. So what do? Well, you either learn how to hotwire your boat or carry a spare, which would be a very smart thing to do. Carry a spare in the boat someplace. Or just don't forget it. Like, I have a little routine that I do every time, and that routine is that when I shut the motor off, I put the keys in the same place every time. So I never, ever forget the keys. They always stay in the boat. I have a spare key set in the truck. So if I ever forget the keys or something happens to the keys, somebody comes along and steals them or something like that, and I don't have the keys, I always have a spare set in the truck. So, $15 for a key or whatever, or $5 to have it copied. It's pretty safe insurance. It'll probably save you the cost of gas. And then speaking of that, that's your next thing is you need, okay, so the motor's going to start. Your trailer's in good shape. Your tires aren't going to fall off. Oh, you've greased well, I don't like greasing cold wheel bearings. I'd rather grease them after I get back from my trip. But, at that point, give your wheel bearings a shot of grease. Track the thing up. Give them a spin. This should have all been done in the fall time because you don't want to have to deal with this in the springtime, like I said, because it's just going to delay you from going fishing, and that's what you want to do. I don't know how many times guys would bring it to me in, the second week in April and stuff like that. Can I have it next weekend? Not a chance, buddy. You've got 20 boats ahead of you. You should have brought it to me at the beginning of April like I told you. Or here's the thing. Bring it to me in the fall time. I'm not doing it. Here's the thing. Bring it to me in August. You know what? You walk into some of these service places in August, they're not doing anything. So if that's the case, bring it to them in August. Like, have your winterizing done. But if you need any maintenance done, bring it to them in August. Don't bring it to them at the beginning of the season. It makes no sense. Anyways, people are people. We do some strange things. So we fired it up. Know it's going to pump water, know it's going to run properly and all the rest of that. Drive it to the gas station and put some fresh gas in it. Boom. Okay? You got your fresh gas in it, get to the water, you're ready to go. And we're going crappie fishing. Why? Because pretty much that's all that's open. What I would have done before this, I should start my season. My season starts off by after the ice is out, or after the ice comes off, then I drive around and I look for, because I'm on the Rito system, I look for locks that I can fish. New Boral's got a really super, it's a canal that goes from Upper Rito to New Boral. That stays full of water all winter long. Fish get trapped in there. They're in there. You can walk that and catch crappies. Bang, 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 bang. Or what the other guys do is they go to the mouth of the locks because the crappies will come up to the mouth of the locks and stuff. The heat in the rocks and the locks warms up quicker, so the water in the locks is actually a bit warmer, and that's what they're looking for. Is they're looking for the warmer water because I guess the bugs are in the warmer water. So that's what they're doing. So I'll find locks. Burt's Rapids is a really good area to do. Nicholson's. Any of the locks between Ottawa and Smith Falls. Beveridge, the mouth of Beveridge, is very good. Go down to Port Elmsley there, and there's a couple of places on the shoreline that you could probably walk. The shoreline is there as well too, and find them in the reeds and stuff like that. So what I'll do at this time of year is I will walk around shorelines. Years ago, I used to hit the golf course on across from Marina on Rito River, and there's a bay there. It's very well known. Everybody fishes it, and it got so well known that some days there was 4, 5, 6, 7 people there and stuff like that. Also on that road that comes out of Cars. That goes to Taylor Park. That road, if you follow it to 416, there's a little bridge on that. There's a sharp corner type thing, 2 sharp corners type thing. You come up a little hill, you go down a hill, and boom, there's a little bridge. It's really low off the water, maybe about a foot. You get there the right time of year, and you can have some awesome, awesome days fishing crappie. If they are stacked up underneath that bridge, you can just sit there and catch 100 fish. Now, they aren't all pigs, and they're not huge. They're 6 to 8, 9 inches and stuff like that. So But I found that to get the really bigger ones, you got to sort of you got to use a boat, really. It's a lot easier. And some lakes you just can't. You can't walk along the shoreline and get them that way. So anyways, so after I know I can get on the water, and it's pretty safe. There's not going to be big chunks of ice floating around or trees and stuff like that, because you got to worry about that as well too. I'll find, say, let's take Mississippi Lake for it, and that's the example I'm going to use today is Mississippi Lake. So let's take that as an example. How do I go about finding crappies on a lake like Mississippi? Well, bays are key, obviously. Mud Lake is key, obviously, because that's the biggest shallow area in it. There are a couple of bays that everybody fishes. Like there's one not right across from John's, but just down from John's, that it sort of snakes in back and behind, and you'll find the crappies ice fishing stacked in the deeper water out front in the wintertime. But as it goes on, they'll move back into that one bay. A lot of people know it. You'll see boats coming in and out of it and fishing the front of it and stuff like that. So bays are key, obviously. Marinas are key as well too. One of the a couple of the marinas on the Rideau are good. If the marinas will let you in, fish their docks. If they've got steel poles there and steel break walls, even better. The steel heats up quickly. It warms the water up. That brings, I guess, the little animals, the little crustacean, or the little forget the word, but plankton and stuff like that, and that brings the little fish, and the cycle commences. Crappies are going to be looking to eat first and then spawn. So what'll happen is they'll end up having a bit of a flurry, and then once you get them shallow, they'll be harder to catch, because when they're spawning, they're a bit harder to catch, I find, than when they first go up there and they're hungry rather than interested in procreating. So, but depending on the body of waters is what you're going to have to look for. Like I say, we're going to look at Mississippi, so we're going to look at some of the shallow bays, and any of the bays, like any of them, anything shallow. You're looking for lily pads. You're looking for dollar pads. You're looking especially for the new emerging lily pads, because if you can find them, that's where they'll be. You're looking for wood stumps, stuff like that. I remember a few years ago, I was on the Rideau River, right up front of, I think it was Pirate Cove back then. So I was out in front of there, and there's a couple of stumps out in front of that, and I think I probably took about 20 crappie off this one stump. It was just they were piled into it. It just incredible how they were piled into it, and it was, you just dropped the jig in and it didn't matter. It disappeared, and then all of a sudden, thump, there was a fish on. Not big, but so considering we just had we're going through a full moon, considering that everything's been delayed because you can't get in the water and stuff like that, and the shallows aren't warming as quickly as they should. I think it's going to be a real quick, fast spawn, and they'll be in, they'll be out, and that'll probably be it. So whatever chance you can get, you better take it soon, because I don't think there's going to be anything extended this year, but I could be wrong. What else are we going to look for? We're going to look for, and this I found last year. It was very interesting. I found them off a hump, suspended over a school of bait fish. And I had my down imaging on. I've got a hummingbird, and I had down imaging on, and I went over it, and I went, I saw it on the flasher, and I wasn't sure, so I went back over it with the down imaging, and I couldn't believe it. I thought they were down deep, and I thought they were underneath the bait ball, but they were actually on top of it, because my jig never went down to the bottom. So they were hard to catch too, but I ended up getting about 20 of them. Again, nothing really huge, but that's the first time I ever caught them suspended out off of a hump. Now, I've caught them on drop-offs out in front of a bay. Like I say, this one on the Rideau, which is across from Hearst. It's considered the golf club bay type thing. And you'd walk the shoreline. There's a dock and lots of vegetation and stuff like that. And you'd fish all the vegetation and everything like that. You wouldn't get anything. So one day I thought, well, they got to be here. So I went out front, or I went around the corner, and I started throwing out deeper. And I dropped my. I usually fish my jig about 6 inches to a foot below. So I dropped it a bit further and I cast out as far as I could. And it dropped off, well, you're right on the edge of the channel. So it probably dropped off to about 10 feet where I was, 8 to 10 feet. And they were probably suspended in about 3 feet because I put about a 2 foot, 2 foot below my float. And that's the other thing, key, is don't put if you're using a float, which most typically everybody uses a float. I'll get into that in a sec, but don't make them too deep because they always want to feed upwards. So anyways, so sometimes you can find them. Remember, they spawn shallow, so shallow is relative. There could be a hump, and they could spawn on that hump. So they're still spawning shallow, but they're not spawning in a bay. I'm not sure of this 100%, but I couldn't understand why I'm finding them out in front of this hump instead of finding out in the bay. So I'll verify that one. But I think shallow is relative. It doesn't matter whether it's a bay or a hump or whatever. They'll spawn on whatever they can, whatever's convenient. So, but as long as it's shallow, that's where they'll go. So anyways, the other thing too is a temperature change and mucky bottoms. So that's what I've always found is hard bottoms. I don't think they typically like them this time of year. They're looking for some kind of muck, not mucky muck, but sort of. It's called marl. It's got rocks in it, but it's it's like ground up clayish sand stuff like that. It's not 100% rocks or anything like that. So it's a combination of rocks and sand and stuff, and it was all ground up by the glaciers and then deposited. And basically those marly type of bottoms is where I find them. And that usually typically is adjacent to the weeds or something like that, or what the weeds are growing out of, or the lily pads and the new emerging pads and stuff like that. So what do I fish them with? I fish them with small crankbaits at times, especially the suspended ones, or if they're out in front of a weed edge or something like that. If they're active, they'll hit a crankbait. I've got some really tiny, they're imitation crayfish crankbaits. And then, like little Rapalas, I guess the I forget what they'd be called, J4s, not my J4s, but anyways, the smallest Rapalas you can find, that will go down, 3 or 4 feet, something like that. And then when they're in the shallows, when they're like right in the weeds and stuff like that, then I'm just using a tube jig on a 16th ounce, jig head underneath the float with a bobber stop. And I got a couple of rods that I rig up with, just one with a twister tail, one with a tube jig. Or sometimes these little, some of the plastics that look like fish. I find that if it's not pink for Mississippi, it's got to have some kind of green or orange in it. Not a chartreuse, but like a dark green, like a perch color. I've found that a lot of times crappies like I'll throw an orange twister tail or a yellow twister tail on the same tube jig, and like a foot below, because like I say, they are feeding up. So if they're in 2 feet of water and they're suspended at a foot and you've got an 18-inch drop on it, unless they're really hungry and they grab it as it falls, you're not going to get all of them, because some of them are just going to let it go right by them. They feed up, so they like to look up all the time. If you look closely at their face and stuff, or their head, their eyes are pointed up, so they naturally feed up. Most fish feed up to begin with anyways. The surface of the water is an edge. It's like you won't go running into the water, just like a fish won't go running into the air. So The edge of the water, the surface of the water is like a wall. So if something's up there, the fish below it knows it's not going to move. It's, straight up. It'll go, horizontal, but it's not going to go vertical. So, you've got three ways it's going to move. I know one way it's not. If it does, well, I'm going after it, and I'm going up, so I got a good shot at it. So, but that's typically what they do, is they feed up because stuff falls to them. That's what gravity does. So we found. Let's just go through it. Let's say we're a good place on Mississippi is Mud Lake. Let's go into Mud Lake. You go into the entrance of Mud Lake, fish all the vegetation on either side until you find either some deeper water, because sometimes that's all what it is as well too. Sometimes it's just a temperature change in the shallow. Sometimes you could be coming in, say it's 55 degrees water or whatever, and you come in and it goes to 56. That might be all that it takes. It doesn't take much sometimes, especially in a temperature change with them. I found it that if you catch them, because I used to fish them every day on the Rideau. When I used to live in Manatech, I'd fish them every day. So I go to the same place every day, which was that bay, which was Golf Club Bay. And they'd be in. Sometimes they would come in late. Sometimes they would come in at 4 o'clock. Sometimes they'd be in at 2 o'clock. Sometimes they wouldn't come in until 6. Sometimes they would, So I think that all depended on the water temperature. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't have a temperature probe with me, but I found that the days when it was really, really super nice, sunny, not much wind, warm. Those were the days when I get them. It was easier to get them. Sort of take that with a grain of salt, but it makes sense that those days that were sunny, usually it was 2 or 3 days in a row that it was sunny. It wasn't like sunny one day and did real well. It was just, if I had 2 or 3 days of warm, sunny weather, and that just leads me to believe water temperature makes a big difference. As that bay warmed up, they were moving in. So another place on Mississippi that I would look for, just for them to stage, because they're not all going to spawn in Mud Lake, it would be adjacent to some rocks. And this I found years ago when I was fishing the locks. I found that you wouldn't find the fish in the middle of the lock. You would find it towards the edges, which would make sense because the rocks will absorb the heat quicker than the ground would. They warm up faster, so the water's going to suck the heat out of the rocks. So at that point I'm going, okay. And I started walking the shoreline, and the side, you've got 2 sides there. So the side that they didn't make, like the natural side, which had less rock to it, didn't do as well. The side that they made, that they built actually to separate the lock from the river and make a channel, was all rock, big huge rocks that they had cut or probably tailings or whatever from masoning the bigger rocks. That's where they were. They were adjacent to the rocks. So it's a heat thing. They want the water temperature. The reason they want the water temperature is because they are not going to spawn until the water temperature is a certain temperature. So that's what's going to initiate their move. So basically base it on how they're going to relate to their environment. And if they're not going to spawn until the water temperature is 55, 56 to 60 degrees, I think they spawn... I should have looked that one up. I'm pretty sure they spawn 40 to 50 degrees, but not too sure. I should have looked that one up, but... and I really can't remember what the temperature was, but it wasn't... Maybe it was getting up to the 50s and stuff like that. So probably, anyways, I got to believe it'd be 50, 55, at least anyways. because the bass aren't coming in much. The bass are coming in at 55, 60, so they got to be 50 to 60, I guess. I'll look it up. Give me a second. I could just probably Google it, but anyhow, so your best bet is going to be the shallows, unless, like say, you've got a spot like I found. It took me a while. I just lucked into it. I was pulling off the hump, and as I was pulling off the hump, I looked down at my flasher and saw this big ball halfway up. I went, what the heck was that? And then I went back over it. It was really windy, so I went back over it, hit waypoint on it, and then I turned on the down imaging, and as I looked at the down imaging, I saw, my gosh, that's not a school of bait fish. That's got it. Those were bigger fish. The bait fish were down below, which I thought was the opposite way. But so, anyways, it was pretty interesting. So, but I hope that helps you. If you have any questions, send me an email to info@lanarkcountyconfidential.ca. Website's being made as we speak. Hopefully, it'll be up in May sometime, and there'll be some cool things on that you can take a look at. And send me comments and any ideas, or if you want to go fishing, let me know. I got some time. I got some openings and stuff for my charter for this summer, so it's not fully booked. So that'll be it. Well, that's this show for this week. Thanks for listening. I'm inviting you to tune in next week for another great show about fishing in Lanark County. Lanark County Confidential, where it's all confidential. Lanark County Confidential is broadcast on WRVO Network, a division of Reno Violas. Thanks, and see you next week. I think I screwed that up big time, didn't I? Yes, I did. Didn't I? Well, we can't see you next week. Okay, let's try that one again. You're going to be a guinea pig for me this week, okay? Okay, so to wrap up this week, crappie fishing this weekend, best thing. Take your kids too. That's what I was trying to remember. This is actually the best time of year to take kids fishing. You're not going to find, summer's okay, but unless you got a really hot bluegill or perch bite or something like that, or panfish or something like that, you're not going to get a better time to fish in the springtime with your kids than now. Watching them catch fish after fish after fish is probably one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. I took my stepdaughters fishing, my stepson fishing, and I'll post the pictures of us fishing at Burris Rapids. Excuse me. And the best thing they can do is go out and catch panfish. So let's try this one more time. So that's the show for this week. Thanks for listening. I invite you to tune in next week for another show about fishing in Lanark County Confidential. In Lanark County Confidential, where it's all confidential. Lanark County is broadcast on the WRVO Radio Network, a division of Reno Viola Outdoors. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.